Welcome to More Than Just a Pretty Chart, Realizing the Power of Data Logging, one of the Saltillo webinar, part of the webinar series from Saltillo. My name is Amanda Hentenhausen, and I am a Senior Assistive Technology Consultant for Saltillo. I've worked for Saltillo for 7 years, and I cover parts of Missouri and Illinois. So if any of you are in the Midwest, we have rainy weather today. Hopefully you guys have some sunshine where you are. A little bit of housekeeping. I'm finding that more and more people are familiar with GoToTraining and GoToWebinar now that they're on it a lot more. But everyone is muted. If for some reason we unmute you at some point today, you're always able to remute yourself. I know that some of us have kids at home or noisy environments that we're working in now. At any point, if there's something that's really important and you want to speak up, you can raise your hand by clicking the little raise hand icon. Otherwise, typically for this presentation, most people are able to get what they need simply by typing in the chat window, which is labeled chat on your panel, or it'll be a little speech bubble if you're on the web version. The other thing that's important is to download the materials. So you'll either see that in the materials section or you'll see like a little PDF paper with a little page turn. The black arrow is pointing to that. You can download all the materials for today's training, and I would highly recommend that. You may have already done that. It might have been in your email that we sent you and you already are ahead of the game. But there's 4 materials in there, and I'll go over those in a minute that will be handy for you to have later. The other thing to know if you're new to GoToTraining is that you can completely customize your view. So like I said, you're going to see different windows, so you can make those bigger and smaller. You can collapse your panel if you're on the desktop view, so to make sure that you can see everything the way you want it. The other important thing is that I have a friend on with me. Her name is Liz. She's already proven her worth because she told me that I was muted and nobody could hear me. So I'm very grateful for her. She's also a Saltillo consultant in the Midwest. So she covers the northern part of me. She's in central Illinois and I'm in southern Illinois. So she'll be manning chat window questions for you as well. This is worth 1 CEU hour. So for those of you that are a speech therapist and you would like ASHA CEUs for today, here's the how-to for that. You need to complete the form if you use the registry. So the ASHA CEU participant form is in the handout section. You will fill in all of the purple sections there. It is a fillable PDF, and so sometimes people struggle with the bubble section. Just start typing in and it'll fill it in. I promise it'll work. It's very important that we have the completion date in the top right-hand corner. And then the other really important thing is that when you go to email it, which all of this, there's an instructions sheet in your handouts. When you go to email it, in the email subject line, type more than a pretty chart plus today's date, so 5/28/20, and attach your completed form. This is really important now more than ever because we've had a really large increase in the number of people attending our presentations, and we want to ensure that we can give you your ASHA CEUs in a timely fashion. Your form must be submitted within 15 days. What I would recommend is that you multitask here a little bit and get it done and ship it off today by the end of this training so that you don't have one more thing on your to-do list. But instructions and forms are in the materials sections. You do have to stay on the entire time, and I will go the entire time. No worries there. I'm a talker by nature. But if you have to hop off early for whatever reason, that's fine, but then you won't be able to count this for CEUs through ASHA because we use that time as your attendance. Okay. I already told you a little bit about myself, but this is necessary since it is an ASHA training. These are my disclosures. I'm an employee owner of PRC Saltillo. I'm an ASHA member, so I'm a speech therapist. I'm also a member of ASHA SIG 12, which is the special interest group for AAC, and I receive free Saltillo loaner devices and services to use in my presentations and training. Okay, so the handout. So make sure you find this portion in your control panel, or if you need to go back to your email, it's there as well. There are 4 different handouts, and I will pull up a couple of these today. I'm going to talk about a consent form. Then there's 2 quick reference guides. So one is for the chat software, which will be our NovaChat and ChatFusion devices, and the other is for TouchChat, which will be our TouchChat app and our TouchChat Express devices. And then we do have a data log sample that we're actually going to look at today. All right, Liz, this is where I need your magic. We're going to run a poll just to find out who's here today. So a poll, if you're not familiar with it, will pop up, and then you will answer to the best of your ability. If your title, person, whatever is not on there, just type who you are in the chat window. That's perfectly fine as well. So as I'm kind of watching the results here, the majority of us on today are speech therapists or speech assistants. It looks like we have a little sprinkle of parent, an aide or a paraprofessional, and then an AT specialist or AAC consultant. So awesome. Thank you. All right, I'll throw out another poll. Actually, Liz, go ahead and do the new one that I just added today to find out what solution that they're using. So the training today is about Saltillo solutions with regards to data logging, and so we have different ones. We have a NovaChat, we have a ChatFusion device, and then we have the TouchChat app or the TouchChat Express. And so hopefully, if you're on this training, you're using one of those solutions. If you're not, then this may not be as valuable for you today. So you're welcome to hop off if you want to, but certainly you can still stay and learn about data logging and how to do it. It might be that you don't know what you're using, and that's perfectly fine too. If it's on an iPad, it's going to be TouchChat if that helps you. And if it's a device that is not an iPad, it's an Android-based device, you're on a NovaChat or a ChatFusion. There we go. That seemed to help a few people there figure it out. So traditionally, when I started this training, it was primarily for our NovaChat and ChatFusion line. But what I'm seeing, and this is why I threw this poll in today, is that more people that are on this now are using our TouchChat solution as well. So there will be pieces in it. There's the quick reference guide. All my demonstration today, though, will be on a NovaChat device. But I'll probably be looking at switching that in the future to doing the demonstration on TouchChat, just as I see the trends here with more people using that across the board. Okay, that was helpful. Thank you. Alrighty, so the name of this, that was kind of all our housekeeping stuff. Now we can get going to the meat of it. So the name of this training is about a picture being, more than a pretty chart. So that comes from this old adage that a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. And I think so much of us would rather look at an x-ray break than read the x-ray report. Or we'd rather look at two children playing or look at their facial expressions versus read that. It's just, you can get so much more and quickly, right? Just by glancing at that. So the one on the left here, you can see very quickly how she feels about the little girl sitting next to her. So what data logging offers us on AAC Solutions is that same opportunity to have a visual representation of what's happening on the device. So what you see on the screen right now is a word cloud on the left and a bar graph on the right. And so we're going to talk about how you can get those and what the value those might bring you and your team as you're working to improve your implementation or to problem solve or to brainstorm. So a few foundational pieces just to make sure we're all on the same page. What is data logging? Data logging captures the language produced on a device, and it records typically three things. When the buttons are pressed, so a timestamp, what words are generated, so specifically what is said, and then how those words are generated. And this is the one that sometimes is a little confusing, but it basically means, was it generated from a single button? Did they spell that word? Did they go into the groups category to find that word, or did they go through a different place? So it gives you a little bit more information about how they came to say that word. So now that we all have the base level or definition of data logging, this is my third and final poll. I just want to know what your familiarity level is with data logging. This is an introductory course. So typically what I expect is for people to be not at all familiar or somewhat familiar. And occasionally I do get people that are very familiar and they're here to just sort of fine tune, which is perfectly fine. I just, again, like everyone to know up front that this is an entry level overview of the what and how of data logging. Okay, so it looks like the people that are here are within that not at all and somewhat familiar, and a couple people that maybe have a little bit greater familiarity, which is great. My goal with any training is always that you walk away with one new thing. So I hope that you're able to achieve that. Those of you that are very familiar, last time somebody that was on shared with me their one new thing that they learned was how to do a gesture to turn data logging on and off on TouchChat. So certainly there's a lot to learn, and I would love to learn from you as well. So don't be shy. If you guys have been on webinars lately, the chat window is so important, and so feel free at any point to chat any sort of stream of conscious thought, question, comment that you have. I think we can all learn so much more from each other as well. Okay, so here's what we have to cover in the next 50 minutes. I'm going to have you experience data logging so that you fully understand what it looks like. We're going to learn about data logging within the chat software and a little bit, like I said, on the TouchChat app. And then we're going to do a case study through the use of real-life language to actually see the data. So this was a team that I worked with, and we'll talk about how it helped their team. And then at the end, what time we have left, we discuss benefits, barriers, considerations, and open it up for discussion. Okay, so if you are brand new, but you've heard this word data logging, maybe you saw it on a card that comes with the devices, or maybe you heard about it through a blog post or a social media post. Basically, what you need to do data logging is you need to turn it on. You use the device, so just normal. So to start here, I'm going to just show a quick little video of what that looks like. So data logging is turned on, and it's just a natural interaction. So there's not much else that's going on here. This video does have subtitles. I'm also going to turn up the volume. Technology plays nice this morning. Hopefully you're able to get a glimpse of that, but what the reason that I show that is just so that we understand that collecting data is nothing more than just using the device naturally. So you turn it on, you use the device, and then you pull the data log off of the technology, and you have to make sense of the log file. And this is where it can intimidate some. And then you can start asking and answering questions. So what I'm going to do now, just so that it's big enough, is I'm going to switch over into the data log file that you guys have in your handouts. Okay, so if you've never seen a data log file, this is what it looks like, the raw data. At the top will be a privacy statement. So I've added a little bit of information here to help you navigate what this looks like. In brackets here, you're going to see the date, okay, the year, the month, and the day. So you can see this is data log file that I've been using for a long time. This is actually the physical transcript that matches the video that you guys just watched, okay? If I continue to scroll down, you're going to see the time when the button is pressed, and you're going to see some language codes here. So there are 5 different codes within our software, regardless of if you're on a NovaChat or a TouchChat device. There are 2 that are non-language codes, so you don't really need to pay attention to those as much, but there are 3 language codes, and that's really what you want to look for. So I went ahead in this transcript and bolded those for you. If you were looking at this raw data yourself, one good thing to do is to grab a highlighter and just to go and look for those language codes so that it can draw attention to what you're trying to really look for here. PAG means the message was accessed from a page, so it was a single button on a page. SPE means the message was generated via spelling. And then WPR is word prediction. So if they started typing a word and then use those little buttons that pop up to predict what word you might be saying, that would show up. So if we think back to the video, all of the language codes for this video are going to be PAG because there was not any spelling. This little girl is at right around 2. So there wasn't any spelling and there wasn't any word prediction. So if you were to scroll through, this is a 9-page transcript for a less than 3-minute video. So you get a lot of information because each word is on a separate line, and in between each word, you're going to have several non-language codes, which is speaking to the location and position of that button. Okay, so you guys can kind of scroll through and look at that. I don't know if you've ever seen a language transcript before or not, but if you have not, this would be your first exposure to it, and some people feel a little intimidated by that. But it's a nice place to start. And once you get that data log file, the next thing that you need to do is start asking questions. So data by itself will not give you any information, right? The quality or the power of data is in the way that we're able to discuss it and interpret it. So for example, maybe I want to know what day and time the device was used, how many words were said, what verbs or action words were used, how many times a particular feature or word was used. So in this case, the smart period, if that was something that we were working on. So what you can do then is use that transcript to start answering these questions. So for this one, for example, I can really quickly tell you the day and the time that it was used. I can count manually, or if I'm good, I can throw it into Excel to count how many total words were said. So there were 85 total words in this 3-minute interaction. And then I can go through and again, just manually look, okay, what were my verbs? Read, pet, see, turn, says. And maybe I highlight those in a different color as I'm going through. If you do color coding to match the vocabulary, you could highlight those in green just so it calls your attention to them. And then the smart period, which is a feature within Word Power, if you're using Word Power, that will read the sentence and then pop you back to the home page usually. I might want to see how many times that is being used, if it was a goal or something that I had just introduced maybe to the mom to have her start using it. So I can see in here that it was only used 1 time. Now, I do have another option of looking at that same data, and this is where we can get the visual experience, and this is through the use of realized language. I would love to know if you guys just type in the chat window, I'm going to get a little audience participation here, whether or not you've even heard of realized language. So maybe you've heard of it. Yes, you've used it before. You have no idea. This is an open-ended poll. So just type in the chat window what your familiarity level is with realized language. It does come included a 1-year free subscription with our devices. That's what that little card is there on the left. But what it allows you to do, and we'll explore it a little bit more in a bit, is get more visual representation of the device. So right now, you can also access it for free for 2 months. Thank you, Alec, for saying that you've heard of it. That's awesome. Normally, you can try it for 30 days for free, so we've just increased that right now, knowing that we need a lot more virtual support. And this might be one way that you can get at some of that data collection virtually, or to have more meaningful information when you talk with, the family virtually. But you can go to realizedlanguage.com, and if, Liz, you want to throw that link in the chat window, people are welcome to go up. Usually I recommend before signing up to collect a little bit of data, so hold on maybe, and then that way you can actually have data to put up there when we start. But let me just show you, we're taking that same video, the same transcript that we just looked at, that Word document, and instead I put that into real-life language. And this is some of the visual information that I can get. So this is a word cloud, and what I can see very quickly when I look at this are what are the top words, right? I see meow, hoot, owl, and fish. Maybe that tells me something about her favorite animal. Maybe that tells me that she's at a noun level right now, okay? I could also look at the parts of speech. So last time I was able to say, you know, what are the verbs that they're using? Well, here, if I want to see the percentage of verbs to nouns, percentage of pronouns to verbs to nouns, I can get a really quick snapshot of that. If I want to see the specific verbs, I go to our word groups, and you can actually sort by all these different parts of speech. So I just click on the verb category, and it'll quickly show me which verbs were in that data log sample. So when I talk about data logging, you can certainly use it just with a raw data transcript. You can also put it into Excel, and if that's something that you're interested in, you can email me later, and we do have some support materials to help you manipulate data in Excel. Just Excel is not friendly for everybody. Or you can use real-life language and get some really cool visual representations of the data to make it a little bit more digestible. Okay, so we're going to keep going, and I'm going to talk about some of the logistics of using data logging on our solutions. First thing to note, it's available with any software version 2.1 and higher. So this has been since August of 2015. So hopefully you all have that as a feature available on your solutions. If for some reason you don't, then you would need to write yourself a little task to figure out how to do an update, okay? If you're not sure what version you're on, if you're on a NovaChat device in purple, you'll see that you go to Menu, Help, and About. And if you're on your app or on our TouchChat Express, you actually go to the vocabulary section, and then the software version is listed at the bottom of the page. Then you just get started. So there are the 4 steps that I showed you, and then I'm going to add 2 to the front of it that I hadn't talked about yet, and these are really important. So they're a 0 step because you really have to do this before you even get started, and then a little micro step that is really important to do so that you get the meaningful information that you want. So privacy. Privacy is nothing new. We've always held the client or the person's privacy as something that's very, very important in everything that we do in all of our communications. This includes the person who uses the device, also their parents, their family, the staff, because when we're turning that data log on, it's similar to attaching a little, voice recorder to their shirt, and it's picking up information from everybody that they're interacting with. So, for example, if a teacher or a parent uses the device as well, it's going to be capturing that information, or it might be capturing some conversations that happen at home or happen with a doctor or something that would otherwise you want to be confidential. So it's really important that you obtain permission. And whenever possible, you obtain permission from the person using the device themselves. So one of your handouts is a sample, language sample collection permission form from the AAC Institute. It's a really wonderful resource. I have worked with people that have modified this, or they've created their own, or they've used maybe a media release or a language sample analysis form that they already have, and they've just adapted it a little bit. But whether you get that verbal permission or written permission, it's just really important that you don't jump this step. Okay. We do have a few supports that will help you with this, and one is setting a privacy password. It is optional, but when you go to turn data logging on the first time, it will prompt you and it will ask you, would you like to set a password? Cautionary tale here. There is not an override password. What that means is if you forget your password and you call your consultant or tech support and you say, oh no, I forgot my data logging password, can you please help me set an override password? Because this is protecting confidential and private information, we don't have an override password option like we do for our menu lock or something else. So the only way is to completely reset the device and you'll lose all that data. So tip is keep it simple and something that you'll remember, or write it down in a safe place. You also don't have to use it. What this does is it ensures that only the person that has the password can pull the data off of the device. So a lot of teams that I work with do not even set this because they've all have really good communication up front and they know who's going to be collecting it and they have trust within the team. The next step is checking the date and time on the device. And so this is funny because I told you this transcript that I'm using is from 2016, so 4 years ago. But the first time I did it, I hadn't checked the date and the time on it, and it was collecting data for July 4th of 2020. It's ironic because I'm going to have to change that here soon because that's only a couple months away. But if you don't set the date and time right, then you don't know what the data is really reflective of. And I have an example of this. There was a school team that had reached out to me and they data was not happening at school and it was only happening at home. And that's not what they thought should be happening. So we had to dig in a little bit, but we did it by finding the time of like a speech therapy session where they knew for sure it was happening because they saw that their date and time was off, but we wanted to like transfer it. So we found their speech therapy session, the day and time it was happening, figured out how off it was and sort of like shifted it. And it was off by about 4 hours. So it was giving a skewed, representation of what was happening from a time perspective. So just make sure you check the date and time. On a NovaChat device, you just go into the settings. The information is in your cheat sheet, your little guide there on how to do that. Usually if you're on an app, it's not an issue because you're connecting to Wi-Fi and it's keeping it all up on terms of your date and time. Okay, so the next thing is to turn data logging on. So the purple is the NovaChat, the orange is your TouchChat. You find the data logging settings and you either slide or check to turn it on. Once you do that, you will get a little icon that's on the bottom of the page there, a little squiggle that tells everybody that data logging is on. And this is a nice way, again, to talk about that privacy piece. So if you do have someone who is maybe an adult or an adolescent and they're aware of what data logging means, they might want to turn that off sometimes if they're having a confidential conversation or making some comments that they don't want tracked. But it also might just be so that you turn it maybe on and off when they go home, or maybe you only want it on during therapy sessions. So it just gives you that flexibility to know when it is on and when it is off. So on that note, there's 2 ways to toggle data on and off. One is to create a physical button, and another is to create a gesture. And a gesture is an action that's done to the page. So today I don't have the time to walk you through the actual steps of doing both of those, but certainly it's something that you could call tech support and they can walk you through, or you can email me later and I'm happy to walk you through that as well, or contact your consultant. But essentially there is a button action. So for those of you that do some programming, there's a button action that's called data log on and off. And all that you do is when you create a button, you assign that button action to the button. Or when you're making a gesture, you assign that button action to the gesture. So what I have here is just a quick video demo. On the left, there's no sound. On the left, though, watch the top speech display bar, that top message window, for that data logging symbol to appear and then disappear in the window. So you see it come on and off when she pushes the button. So that way you don't have to go in and out of the settings. And then let's do the gesture. So this is the one outlined in purple here. You're going to see she does a 3-finger tap. And when she does that, it'll turn the data log on and off in that window. Oh dear, this was not, that was not what was supposed to happen. Okay, maybe if we have time, I'll demo that. I apologize, that video did not work like it was supposed to. I can demo that for you if we have time at the end. So thinking about why you might want a quicker way to toggle data logging on and off. You can still go in the settings if you want, but if we think back to this video, and I'm going to play it just for a minute, I'm not going to worry about the sound at all. I want you to watch and pay attention to who is touching the device. So what you should have noticed is that both the mom and the little girl are touching the device. So what data logging gives us is a live transcript of exactly what is being said. What it does not give us is who said what, okay? So luckily, because I have a video to align with the transcript, what I can actually do is really quickly go through and highlight. So that's what I did here. And I highlighted in yellow everything that the little girl said. What I absolutely love about this, so if you wanted to know a good place to start, is just to do one little simple, maybe video, clip, and data log, and then you can go through and look at it this way in just a very small micro scale. But what this gives me is I can start to see the impact of modeling, which modeling or aided language input is when the communication partner, in this example, mom, is using the device to show the little girl different words, right? She's giving her that language-rich experience while they're reading the book in the modality of her AAC system. So what I can see here is a couple things. These are Amanda's thoughts when I looked at this. One is that I noticed that the child mostly uses one word. She uses a single word, and it's usually an animal name and an animal sound. For a 2-year-old who's just sort of getting started, that does not surprise me at all, right? I also noticed that she repeats the word. So if you look at how many times she says owl in less than a second, not that I necessarily need to change anything, but it just gives me some insight. So for example, I might say, well, does she need a timing adjustment? Or is this just her learning style? And given the fact that she's 2 and was recently exposed, I'm thinking it's just her learning style, right? She's hearing the word a lot, but it might be something that I look for if it's a pattern that I see where every word she's hitting it 3 or 4 times. And so when you actually see that on paper, it makes you stop and think, okay, because I don't see that pattern a lot of other places, my guess is that she just really liked hearing that word owl over and over again. It was maybe a new word, something she loved, or maybe it just sounded a little funny. I also noticed that on the right-hand side there's a lot of what mom was saying. And so mom modeled the word, turn the page, or the phrase rather, turn the page 3 times. So I can see that, she said, let's turn the page, let's turn the page. And then at the end, and I cut the video off a little sooner so you guys didn't see the end part, but the little girl does it herself. And so I can see that there was 3 times that mom modeled it before the child was able to do it spontaneously. So that starts to give me some really good insight and support for modeling, that it works and that we have to do that repetition and model more for the child than a single time. I also love seeing male right next to turn the page. So because I can see the screen, I know that male is right next to turn the page. And so male was a mishit. But what's really cool is I can see she self-corrected really quickly. And if I have the video, I see that mom doesn't say anything. The little girl hits male and she hears it, knows it's wrong, and goes right next to it to say turn the page. So this would be exhausting if you did this for every interaction. But for little samples along the way to help you get really good information, it can be really powerful. So the thing to know is data logging is not a perfect science. If you are a type A person that likes to have things just perfect, just so, you're going to have to give it in a little bit because that's not going to be possible here. So once you've turned the data log on, use the device to collect data. It's important to know and have a discussion like, when do I want to collect this data? Do I want to turn it on and just collect it all day? Do I want to do it during a more spontaneous interaction? Do I want to do it during a structured language activity? So like reading a book, or during a therapy session, or during my teletherapy, do I want to turn it on? Do I want to turn it on? This is not as applicable right now, but sometimes only at school or only during certain times of the day. So this is just something you have to discuss as a team. A lot of people, I will say, when they get started, they either turn it on throughout the whole day and just leave it on, or they'll do it just during a few structured sessions. Maybe they'll start during a therapy session or something. Then you have to get data off the device. So there's a couple different ways to do this. You can get data off the device and send it through Wi-Fi to Realize Language, or you can get data off the device directly, and it can work with either a Windows computer or a Mac computer because we're not using our chat editor software at all. We're simply taking an Android device and we're connecting it to a computer. If you're going to do it manually, you go in and you save the data to the file and then you pull it off. This is for the NovaChat devices. If you're doing it manually for TouchChat, those instructions are in there, but you're going to have to go through iTunes. I will say most people that use TouchChat, because you have internet capability, are usually using this latter option. which is through Wi-Fi. So to use it through Wi-Fi, you do have to have a Realize Language account set up so that it can load somewhere. It has to know where it's going. So you would set up that Realize Language account in order to do the data transfer, but then you go into our settings where it says Realize Language Setup, and you connect there. Because of time, and this is just a 1-hour intro, I'm not going to go through how to interact with Realize Language. And looking at the post, a lot of you said I've heard of it, but I haven't used it before. So there are several really great resources on the Realize Language website. There's a video about connecting your NovaChat to Realize Language, and there's a video about connecting your TouchChat app to Realize Language. So once you get up and going, you can watch those. They're short 4-minute video clips. Again, with a device purchase, you get 1 year free, or right now you can try it out for 2 months. After that, it's only about $10 a year, which is less than $1 a month for data analysis, which, trust me, if you've ever done data analysis, is well worth your time. If you're a speech therapist, it's good to know that you can have up to 10 different clients on the same Realize Language account, which is really great. And if the family also has a Realize Language account, you guys can share data back and forth. There is an upcoming webinar if Realize Language is something that piques your interest. Their next webinar that's free is June 10th. You can register for that at the Realize Language website. Tons of really great videos and resources on their website. So again, I won't try to emulate that. I'll just let you go directly to the source there. Alrighty, what we're going to do, if technology plays nicely with me, is I'm going to just quickly walk through it, start to finish on my device using a document camera. Okay. What I want, if you have a NovaChat handy, you can grab it out. If you have a TouchChat app, you can grab it. Certainly, like I said, I'm not demoing TouchChat today for the sake of time, but what those 2 handouts that you have are basically a quick reference guide. The manual for the NovaChat and our online resources for TouchChat also do a really great job of this. But this just splices out the information that you need to do the data logging specifically on these 2 platforms. Okay, I'm going to switch over, give me a minute here to this. Okay, so you guys should see my device, and Liz, I'm going to say those kinds of things out loud, so if I'm not doing that, you know to let me know. All right, so I've obtained permission from myself that I can collect some data. Step 1, I'm going to go to my settings, and I'm going to check the time. So if you're saying this is really fast, you're right, it is pretty fast. This is recorded though, and will be shared on our website. It is actually already up on our website from a different time that I've done it, so that you can go and watch it and rewind it later. So I'm going to date and time, May 28, Central Time Zone, 10:38. Perfect. Now, my data logging is already turned on because I use data logging a lot. But what I'm going to do is go into the settings and data logging. And this is where you do all things data logging. So if I turn it on, since this is not the first time I'm doing it, it's not asking me about a privacy password, but I can go in here and set one at any point. Keeping in mind that there's no override, very important. If this is maybe a trial device that's been used for lots of different people, you can have individual people set up on here. I'm going to just clear the entire log so that everything that we get today is just from our time here. If I wanted to set it up to a Realize Language account, this is where I would do that here. You do not have to have, you can connect to Wi-Fi on some of our NovaChat devices, so if you have a question about that, otherwise you can always unlock it for a one-time fee of $25 so that you have the Wi-Fi ability. Okay, I'm going to come back out here. My data log symbol is turned on, and then I'm just going to use the device.
I help you. I help you.
Let's see, I'm just going to build some fun sentence. Where do you want? Not that we can go a lot of places right now, but just for fun.
Where do you want to go? I watch.
What did I watch this weekend?
Movie.
Right, we've all been watching a lot of
I watch
movies and things. So once I've collected my data, and this obviously would go on for a longer period of time, what I'm going to show first is the manual to get it to my computer. I'll go into data logging, save data to file, and then I can choose just a certain time frame. Like I said, I could have different people set up on my device, but I'm just going to say save to file. Now, it's prompting me here to plug in a USB drive. So for those of you that have a NovaChat, which I know this is a smaller percentage, you can actually use a USB drive that comes with the devices, which allows us to do backup. So I'm going to plug that in here to the side of the computer, or to the side of the device, I'm sorry. And that way when I say save to file, I can choose the USB disk. If I didn't have a USB disk, I would just be saving it to my internal storage. Tells me down here that the file's been saved. Okay, so now my data has been taken off the device. I'm good to go. So if you're trying to do this remotely with somebody, you know, you can certainly have a parent collect the data and then upload it for you. What I'm going to do now is plug in my USB drive into my laptop computer. Again, you can do this on a Mac because this is just a file that I'm trying. There you hear my computer recognized a file. So we are going to go to File Explorer here and open that up. Oops. This is going to come in as a USB. It doesn't seem to be showing up there. Well, look at that. Okay, it's all right. I was prepared for something like this. Don't worry. I know that you're not all worried. I have one saved here. Where is it? Here we go. My USB just isn't reading right now, and I apologize for that. For the sake of time, I'm not going to get stuck there. So this is one I did last time. So you'll see this is my transcript. So I did different sentences last time. I go for a walk. Okay. My day was good. So these are this is the data. I can copy this, select all, copy and paste it into a Word doc, into an Excel doc. I can print it off. It's just a text file. Now, if I want to get this uploaded to Realize Language, I'll hop onto Realize Language here. I told you can have up to 10 different people on one language account. So this is what I have here. I'm going to go ahead and we'll pick myself today. I want to upload a file. So if I had Wi-Fi connected on my device, I could go ahead and get that uploaded via Wi-Fi, but I can also do it manually. And this is just what I want to make sure that you see, that you can do it without Wi-Fi capabilities on the device. I know that sometimes you don't have that option because of school limitations or home limitations, so you can still do it manually. I usually choose to show the manual version because if we can show everyone how to do it manually, anybody can do it through Wi-Fi. Okay. I'm going to upload this here. And then I can go to my dashboard for this person. And I can pick the time frame that I want to see the data from. So if I want to just see the data for right now, I can pick it from today and say load. And here's just our little bit of data sample. So I've got my word cloud. Whoops, this is showing my word cloud for everything that I've ever uploaded, which is also fun, but not what I'm going to show you today. Oh, come on. It's being silly. May 27th. Get it to load. I'm not having much luck today with my technology. I apologize. Let's get some data up here. Okay. We'll go and do this one. I'll show you this. Once you have some data in there, though, you can start to see your word cloud, your top 10 words, and one of my favorite is the calendar. You can see how many times over a month, how many times across the week, and then how many times or what specific time during the day, as well as this visual calendar here. Okay. I am going to sneak back into my PowerPoint. So if you need more help, we have lots of layers of help and support. We've got recorded webinars, this one today. We have video tutorials. We have tech support for your NovaChat by phone, and for the TouchChat app, we have it through email. Make sure that you reach out to whomever you need to get the support to get going. What I want to end this with is a little case study to show you the value that it's had for some other people. This was a school-based team that I worked with, and we had a variety of people involved, as you can see here. And what we wanted to do was just see the impact that data logging could have for this child. And so we went through all the steps. Like I said, we obtained permission, we had training, we assigned roles, who's going to do what. We used a gesture to turn data logging on and off. We planned for when we wanted to collect data, and then we scheduled meetings. So that one of the things that was really nice about it is it made us very intentional about when we were going to get together and talk. So the very first time we decided, let's just turn it on for 2 weeks and see what happens. Okay, good baseline data. So what was really cool is when we pulled it off for the first time after 2 weeks, we could see that it was being used every day by this quick calendar snapshot. We did, however, notice as we looked at it, so visual representation, again, allows you to see trends really quickly. So it's like, wow, Monday and Tuesday, and this was consistent with this other week that we collected, seems to have a lot more use. Why is that? Or, gosh, it never seems to be used during this time from about 10:30 to 1 every day. There's sort of a gap there. And we definitely noticed that it wasn't being used in the evening. So what this did, it was a starting point for conversation. We didn't know the answers to this by ourselves, so we had to reach out and talk to the mom, we had to talk to the aide to get more information. So what we learned is that he has more energy at the beginning of the week and he starts to fatigue towards the end of the week. I'm sure you have other friends like that. It's not used during that afternoon time because the aide leaves the classroom and she's the only one that's really been trained, so it made us aware of the need to train another aide. And it wasn't being used at home, and we had a conversation, or I didn't, but the SLP had a conversation with mom. And, you know, mom says that they understand him at home, and mom works nights, and there was some homework they were supposed to be doing, and mom talked to dad and found out that he, you know, didn't realize that it was supposed to be used with the device. And so it was just a nice opportunity for some clarity. The word cloud was really, really positive. The aide, it was very motivating for her. Mom loved seeing all the words that her child was saying, especially since she doesn't use it at home. It was sort of an eye-opening, you know, thing for her to say, oh my gosh, you know, my son said all those words. That's a lot of words. But it makes it more approachable. And for the speech therapist and myself, we looked at it and we said, we can see that there's a need to create more opportunities beyond requesting. We see a lot of nouns in here. And we see iPad being really, really big. And so we're guessing that he's using it a lot for that, which is great. But we want to make sure that we've got greater diversity in his language. So we also did a comparison of spontaneous language over 3 weeks and during a 30-minute therapy session. So you're able to look at individual chunks and compare. And so this gave us some good insight into what we needed to structure to help that carry over. So in the therapy session, we're seeing a lot of verbs being used. And then if we go into the classroom environment, we're seeing a lot more nouns being used. So it gave us an opportunity to talk to the aide and the classroom teacher about what we can do to support that. So we met and we had a plan, and you can see here sort of what the plan is, and I've talked to that a little bit, but the family was going to start using, you know, the AAC device at home for the homework. The aide was going to try to use different types of words in the classroom. She was going to leave the device out when she left, and we were going to do some training for the other person that was coming in. The one thing that happened was the gesture. People were so afraid of touching the device because they didn't want to mess up the data that they stopped providing that modeling and aided language input, and they just started pointing. And we didn't want that to happen. So we actually decided to just sort of give data logging a break for a little bit. And then we turn it back on in a couple months and adjust for the goals on the IEP. We didn't want people to be too focused on data logging that it was limiting them from providing that aided language input. So we did another kind of round of that in a few months. Like I said, we turned it on, let it go, loaded it and discussed it. So highlights, we saw the homework use increased at home. We saw increased use overall with more even distribution across the week. So Monday and Tuesday weren't the only days that he was really using it. We saw like Thursday was really big one day and Friday was really big. That's actually the biggest day on there is a Friday. And then we looked at the actual words, so you can still get into the individual word level. We saw that there were more word combinations in the classroom. So before we probably would have just seen scissors or glue stick. Remember, we saw a lot of nouns. And now we started seeing some of these 2 to 3 word combinations. I want glue stick, I want scissors. And what we don't know was if that was the aide or the child. But genuinely, if you think about it, it doesn't really matter because either the child's putting those words together, which is great, but if it's the aide, she's giving really good language stimulation, which is also wonderful. So if we wanted to know individually what he was doing, we'd have to take sort of a separate small language sample in a structured environment, or not have the aide touch it for a few days and let the child just do it. But again, it goes back to it's not a perfect science, and it's about what your overall goal is. So after that sample, it actually helped to adjust the goals in the IEP. They looked at the vocabulary he was using and changed him from a word power 48 to a word power 60 so that he would have quicker access to verbs. And then they collected data again, or they decided they would at the end of the year. So what they did throughout the year is really just 3, little snapshots of where they are in time, which if we think about what we do with data, a lot of times that's all we need. We need some milestones, some checkpoints along the way. What's cool about having a baseline to then go back and compare to is that you can see changes. So sometimes we can't see changes day to day or week to week. But if we start looking across a series of months, we can see those changes, especially in a visual way. So here you can see that there was increased use across the day. You started to see it pop up in the evening. We noticed that the parts of speech, we got greater colors on the right. So that means that more parts of speech are being used. So for example, you can see that there's more adverbs, more interjections, more prepositions just starting to come over in the color. The word cloud, every word cloud is going to look different. So it's really a commentary on what's happening right then. But what was neat about this is iPad is still there. We know that that's something he loves, but it's not the biggest thing, which means he wasn't only using the device to ask for his iPad. I'm sure you've worked with individuals before where you feel like that's all we're doing. I've heard people say it's a vending machine. Like all they're doing is asking for things and we want more than that. So if you look in here, you see some other words. No being a predominant one, that's pretty large. But little, which is an adjective, and big, and some color words, and out and in, go. So you start to see that he has some other functions of communication just by looking at the word cloud. So from here, it was exciting to see noticeable changes. You could actually use it to look at the progress on some of his new goals. The biggest takeaway is that it increased the frequency and the quality of the communication between the team. And I think that was this team's big conclusion. And when I talk to people about how should I use it or why should I use it and all of that, using the data logging with that data visualization piece, I think that's really important, especially if you're not a data Excel document type person. But it really is about increasing the quality of your communication, providing a framework for discussion, increasing your confidence that what you're doing is working because you can see it. But it also, of course, did increase device use and language. I have had people that use it just to track modeling. So they've seen that it's been an increase in modeling because they noticed that there's a lot more device use where the communication partner is modeling. So that being said, there's always limitations to anything that we do, and that's okay. It's just important to know what those are. So time, it does take some time to get training and to get things kind of going. Maybe you have to watch a webinar, maybe you have to, meet with a consultant. But as the more you do it, the team that I work with said the easier it became. Especially if you're going to do the Wi-Fi uploads, those are really simple. They happen at the same time every day with as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi. So it's just always loading up to your Realize Language account, which is beautiful. Privacy, so again, making sure that you're considering that of the individual. Team buy-in, and maybe that's not the right way to say it, but just making sure that everyone is supportive of it. I've seen data logging end up being used not in the spirit of collaboration and using it to sort of show something to somebody or to prove a point, and that's not really what it's about. So that's important that we know everybody's on the same page about why we're using it and how we're going to use it. It is subscription based, so you do get a free year with the device purchase. You get free 2 months, but then after that, there is some cost involved. And for me, the limitation to just always keep in mind is it's only part of the picture. It allows you to ask better questions. It does not give you all the answers. That's the unofficial tagline of Realized Language that Russell Cross has shared with me. So data logging really is more than just a pretty chart. It's a way to increase communication, to increase conversation, and to help make changes along the way to help the individual with whom you're working with. So if you're ready to get started, if I didn't totally scare you off, usually the people that come here have some interest in data logging. It's usually a smaller group compared to the rest of our webinars. But start small. Start with one person, one session. Maybe just turn it on for a week and don't worry about it. Have a why, though. It's important to know why you want to turn it on in the first place. And that should be part of that conversation with the family as well. And then get support where you need it. One of the questions I get from people a lot of times is, okay, I get my data. What are some questions I might ask? So there is a really wonderful detailed guide on Realized Language in their resources section that you can certainly go there, and it will give you sort of like a case study. So once you get your data log sample up there, it walks you through different questions. These are just a couple for you to kind of think about, like when is the device being used the most, and how do I replicate that across environments? What are the 5 words that are used the most? Are there words that I didn't expect to see? Are there parts of speech that are not being used? And in today, in the world of tele, maybe it's just a way to help the family, collect the data and talk to them weekly or every other week about what's being used, or are the target words that you were hoping they were modeling, coming through. And there's never a bad question. So you have to understand, what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? It can be really great to identify words to include in a backup system. So if you're going to do a low-tech board, you can go and see what their top words are if you have turned it on. I had one family that had it on for a year. So I could go see what his top words have been over the past year, and there might be some words that I didn't have in a low-tech board. For this little guy that I'm thinking of, Mickey Mouse was like one of his top words. So if I had a low-tech core board, I would want to make sure that Mickey Mouse was on there as an option somewhere. It might be a motivational piece, so to hang a word cloud up on the refrigerator, to get someone to model more because it's like the Fitbit effect. They see it, and it encourages them to do more. It might give you insight into spelling skills if you're working on literacy, and or words to add if there's a lot of words that they're spelling over and over again. And it can also be a basis for really fun therapy activities, which I never thought of, but Maggie Judson and Gina Antrim, who is Bath AAC, if you don't follow them, they use data logging for therapy, which I don't know why I didn't think about that. They'll use the word clouds a lot of the time to do art, to do literacy activities, to cut it up and build sentences, to do like a hunt and find, to make jewelry, a modeling reminder, so to have that out somewhere. But there's a lot of things you can do with it once you just get started. So dip your toe in. Know that you can always reach out to us. You can follow us on social media if you're not already. This is all of our different, tags and mentions and everything handled. Or you can join the Realized Language group, and or if you want specific information about that. So what I'm going to look at, and I apologize, I told you we always go right up to the end. Liz, I didn't see any specific questions in the chat window necessarily about data logging. It seemed to mostly be related to ASHA. But if anyone has a question now, they're welcome to raise their hand or just put it in the chat window.
Yeah, Amanda, there was just a couple questions about ASHA. So at the end of any questions that anyone has about this, I just did want to review the form really quickly so I can pull it up on my end, or if you wanted to, whatever works.
Yep, I have it right here, so that works.
Okay.
And Alicia, you said you love the program to turn data logging on and off. Awesome. If you already programmed it, way to go. If you need help with that, you can always email me too. Oh, perfect. Look at you, rock star. Okay, so here's the ASHA reminders. It's in the handouts. okay? And that will come in the follow-up email if you couldn't find it in your handout section. Fill out all the purple sections. So this is the completion date, the last name, your ASHA number, and your information. Email that to info@printrom.com, including the name and the date today, and attach the completed form.
I think they got that, Amanda. With the issue is when you actually click in the PDF form, and I've seen this too, and I just tried it myself. When you click in the PDF form, everything goes blank under like last name or ASHA number. And so the question was, when you click in there, now what I do is when I click in there and type in my last name and hit enter, it just fills it all in for me. But I didn't know if you could actually maybe pull that up and show how that's done.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Do you have your PDF? Do you have it open?
I do. I have it pulled up so I can share my.
Yeah, we'll just switch screens into you because if you have it ready to go,
okay,
do that.
Perfect.
You should be able to.
Okay.